Hello and welcome to today's Travel Talk. I'm Diane Cook, the owner and principal travel designer of Seven Seas to Sea Travel. Today, my guest is Dana from Aurora Expeditions, and we're going to be talking about all things polar. So I'm so glad you're here and settle in and relax. And any questions you have, we will have a Q&A at the end, or if you're watching this as recorded, just send them to me and I will come back to you with the answers. So I will hand it over to Dana.
Thanks, Diane. I'm really excited to be here. Diane and I with Seven Seas to Sea Travel and Aurora Expeditions, we have a special partnership, and we wanted to introduce to you today the Northwest Passage. So I'm going to jump right into it, and a little bit about my history working with Aurora Expeditions. I've traveled a lot in the Arctic, Norway, Canada, and Greenland. And then I've also done some Antarctic experiences as well, both along the peninsula and into the Weddell Sea. So if you have any questions regarding Antarctica or any part of the Arctic, please don't hesitate to ask. And if I don't have the answer, I'll definitely find it for you. So just a little bit to back up about what Aurora Expeditions is all about. We've actually been around for 33 years. We're an Australian-based company, and we're just getting known here in North America in the last, I would say, 7 years, and only having someone dedicated to Canada in the last year. So it's been lovely to meet partners all over the region, and we're award-winning, like I said, Australian-owned. We were founded by a legendary mountaineer in Australia, and we are also now B Corp certified, and we'll talk more about what that means later in the presentation. But what we're really doing out here is we're creating these experiences that are everlasting, and you want to take them home to your family and share these experiences, and we create lifelong ambassadors all over the planet. So I mentioned B Corp, and what that really means is that we are traveling very responsibly. We have a B Corp certification, and that means it's an environmental stamp of approval. We're kind of meeting all the rules and regulations that it takes through a company called B Lab that creates the standard for B Corp. We made changes to our ship to accommodate that. And we also source out local food and wines to provision our ships. So, and then we also hire local guides and things like that. So everything that we're doing, environmental standards and the environment is really at the forefront of everything that we do. So you can feel really comfortable when you're traveling with us. So the Northwest Passage is on one of the lovely ships called the Greg Mortimer. This is one of 3 of our vessels, and it's a Ulstein X-bow technology. That's that inverted bow you see at the front of the ship. And I'll just show you a little bit about what that looks like when we're going through the ice here, if this will play for me. There it goes. So you can see the ice class capabilities. We're not breaking ice out there, but we're definitely moving it around. So this technology, along with the stabilization, creates a really lovely platform, very stable. I experienced it last summer up in the Northwest Passage, and I was really amazed. I've been on some older vessels, and this one did not make me seasick at all. There it is again. All right, so just move through here. This is the lecture theater. So part of our expeditions are education and enrichment. So we will congregate here at the end of every day for happy hour and a briefing. So we'll talk about ice charts. We'll talk about what we're going to do tomorrow, what we saw that day, any questions that we had. And it's kind of like an open family table conversation with some images and some topo maps and ice charts, and you'll get to learn how to read all of that stuff. We also have a lovely library on board the ship, very lots of polar history books and expedition stories and really nice quiet space. And this is our main dining room. And then there's the lounge right outside the lecture theater, great place to grab a cocktail at the end of the day. We also have a state-of-the-art gymnasium, although it doesn't get used a lot because we're so active out there. But it is a nice place to, have a stretch, walk on the treadmill on those days that we're at sea. And the sauna, of course, and jacuzzis on the back deck of the Greg Mortimer. Now, this is your average cabin type on this ship. The beds can always be split into 2 singles or a king. We also have dedicated solo cabins on the ships. So lots of room to accommodate everyone, lots of space in the rooms, lots of storage. I shared with a friend last year, and there was lots of space to put all of our stuff away and store our luggage under the bed. The bathrooms in the rooms have heated tile, so that's really, really comfortable space as well. Now, this is the mudroom, which is really the heart of an expedition vessel because this room allows us to deploy on those zodiacs very quickly. So when it's time to go expeditioning and get on shore and walk around with the wildlife and see some historical sites and stretch our legs, we want to get off right away. We don't want to wait our turn. So our ship is only 130 passengers, and that means we can get everybody off at the same time. And then once you're on shore, you choose your adventure, whether it's a charging hike or a meander along shore with the photographers or something in between. So you can keep your parka here, your life vest, all adjusted for your size will be kept here, and your boots and anything else you want. Now, we get into the actual details of the Northwest Passage, which I absolutely love. So this trip would be September 7th through 22nd, and it's in 2025. And it is West Greenland, and Nunavut, and it's 16 days. So it's going to start in Calgary and end in Toronto. And what that means is there's 2 charter flights involved. That's included in the cost. And so you'll charter flight from Calgary up to Cambridge Bay, where you see on the map there. And then you'll charter flight from Kangerlussuaq, Greenland, back to Toronto. All the activities and engagement and enrichment are included on this trip. There's one optional activity, and that's sea kayaking. And this, I needed to show you this map because it just shows a little bit more in detail about the areas that we were traveling in. So coming over from Greenland, you'll see Kikatarjuaq along Baffin Island there. That's a community. Pond Inlet is a community. And Cambridge Bay is a community. So all stars aligned and ice charts allow, we will be getting into 3 different communities, which is really incredible for the cultural experience in the Arctic. Now, that's just a little snapshot of the things that we're going to be doing there. Polar plunge, that's included. Citizen science is included. And then this optional activity I need to show you because it launches off the stern deck of the ship. And these are all the kayaks in the water, and the kayakers are getting ready to go and have their experience. Now, another thing we'll experience in Greenland is a traditional Greenlandic kayaker. So here you see in traditional sealskin clothing, that's his dry suit and his homemade kayak. And a Greenlandic kayaker will actually give us a presentation about their kayaks, and they'll actually do full rollovers. So the history of this kayak dates back more than 4,000 years, and it was originally used by Inuit people for hunting and transportation across the icy waters in the Arctic Ocean, but now mostly for demonstration and for teaching us all about that Greenland kayak. Sometimes we huddle in buddy boats. We exchange knowledge and stories, and our experts are always more than willing to share their expertise. I always hated a classroom environment, and I'm a hands-on learner. So these types of trips where I can see it with my own eyes and have someone there to answer my questions really makes me feel like I'm getting a degree in the field. You're going to see many different forms of ice. They're going to look different from changing light and all angles. It's going to be absolutely spectacular to see so many different angles of beauty in the icebergs. Here we're zodiacking through the brash ice or bergy bits. and we're navigating our way back to the ship after a hike in the community of Ilulissat. So you see this next slide is what it looked like when we came in. And then this is what it looked like when we're trying to get out. So you can kind of get a sense of how quickly the ice can blow into a fjord or a little bay. And that's why we're traveling with the experts and we're watching all the time. Cotton grass grows all over the Arctic. I don't know why this grabs my heart more than the most beautiful wildflower ever, but I love cotton grass. It not only provides people in the north with a feeling of summer and lighter days, but the people actually use this cotton grass to make a wick to burn in their oil lanterns. And I'll show you a picture of that a bit later on. This is one of the communities in Greenland that will take your breath away. I will never forget waking up at 6 a.m. and looking out my balcony door at this site. That band of fog over the island and that beautiful heart-shaped mountain and all the color and the glaring sunshine. I never imagined that I would get a good hike in here, but we certainly did. We hiked all along the base of that mountain. The snow that sheds off that mountain creates a little lake at the bottom, and that serves the community's water. So we were able to see that system. And really this community is still using dogs for hunting and sourcing out wildlife and such. So it's a really, really beautiful community still living very much off the land. And this is another shot from behind that mountain. And what's good about these trips is there's endless opportunity. So if you don't go into an island like this one, it'll be something else, just as grand. And wherever you go, it's 100% amazing and it will take your breath away. This is taken on my iPhone. So sorry if it's not clear, but it gives you an idea of how
Cool.
All right, so that was Mr. Whale showing off for us. Now, what a vision these Greenland homes are in all their pretty colors. Almost all the communities along the west coast of Greenland look like this. And the color coding of buildings and houses in Greenland dates back to its 18th century. And when wooden houses were sent up from Scandinavia as timber kits. And there were no house numbers or street names. So all the buildings were one of 5 base colors: red, black, yellow, green, and blue. And each color had a specific meaning. So the red buildings were usually churches, schools, teachers, or ministry houses. And the yellows were hospitals, doctors and healthcare personnel. And the green was that symbolized radio communication. And the blue was often fish factories. So this is how people found their way around. And, you know, it was easier to distinguish between the houses to create a system before they came up with street names and house numbers. So really cool and some of them are still pretty traditional in their color. And you do have to get approval to paint your home a specific color. So if you want to branch out of the norm, you have to, go through the process. So they do have a little bit of guideline around that. Now, as a Canadian, this was my first landing in Canada after exploring in Greenland and coming across Baffin Bay and landing in Canada. And as a Canadian, I was really excited to be back in Canada. So stepping foot in the high Arctic of Nunavut, it was like none other. So it's like what I imagine standing on the moon would be like. And my life has been blessed with adventure, but Northwest Passage is the trip of a lifetime, and the experience will be with you long time. Here you see we get into some of the archaeology and some of the history of the Northwest Passage. So you see all the little rocky crops along the very flat tundra. Those are tent rings. So they would stand up whale bones and different things that they could find to stretch their hides over, and then stake them down with rocks in order to gain some shelter. Now, these are things that we see all over the Arctic. And we're very careful. You see the little red bag of rope there. So we rope it off so that people aren't stepping on these archaeology sites. And then this one is a traditional fox trap. So what they would do is put some bait in there and then balance a rock on top, and the fox would go in, and then essentially the rock would trap him inside. And so that is a fox trap that was found when we were there with our archaeologists last summer. And here she is, Julia Brennan, our lovely archaeologist that travels with us. And this was quite an incredible find. So this is a Thule home or Dorset hut, and the entrance had this massive whalebone right at the entrance. And all around this site, you could see all the different areas of a home. And that's something that we can, work with the archaeologist and collect that data. And she'll actually take that back to her, because these are sites that very, very few people have ever been to. We had one incredible experience in the Arctic last year. It was in Canada, and we were up in near Resolute Bay. And at this particular site, we followed 2 polar bears, a mom and a cub, for quite some time. And when we arrived into this bay, they were still trucking along the side, and we were going to launch the Zodiacs. We were a bit nervous about the bear. We thought maybe a Zodiac cruise would be a little bit safer rather than going on shore and checking out the hut. But instead, once we got in there, we realized there was a pod of about 200 beluga whales in the bay. So we could not launch Zodiacs or do anything. So we shut the engine right down, and we stayed in position, and we watched beluga whales for probably 4 hours that afternoon, as well as keeping an eye on our bears. So by that point, they'd been with us for about 6 hours. So we were calling them our bears. And Mama and baby bear rocked up to this little hut. And lo and behold, we got a shot of baby bear peering in through the window as Mama bear looks like she's just arrived home after a long trek in the Arctic. So what an incredible moment to have. And just goes to show you, if you're patient with the weather and the wildlife in the Arctic, it will really deliver some beautiful shots. We also visit Beechey Island. Now, those people that know Beechey Island will know that it's the historical site of where Franklin's men passed, and they were buried there, and the 4 headstones were put there, and then a 5th when a rescue boat had come back to also search for him. So we're going to visit this area as well. There's all sorts of monumental things happening on this site. This is the Lady Franklin monument. And that was also put there when the rescue boats came back to search. This is something called Northumberland House, and it was the camp near the one end of Beechey Island that the search mission set up while they were looking for Franklin and his men. And you can kind of see the remnants of coal there. So they were obviously burning lots of coal. And then this is Radstock Bay, and the hiking here is incredible. We actually got quite far up this cliff from the backside. And I've included this little snapshot of this book here called Polar Bears. So you may know the name Ian Sterling. He passed away just this year in May, and he was a professor at the University of Alberta, and he was also a research scientist with Environment and Climate Change Canada. And he pitched a tent on top of this cliff in 1970, and he proceeded to observe and study polar bears for the summer. It was more of a structured tent, but for the most part, he was safe from bears, I think. And up there, he was able to watch them carefully going about their business down below. And he wrote a number of books on his research, but the one shown here is the most memorable in my opinion. It has a lot of information in it. So if you're really keen on polar bears and the history and the behaviors, his knowledge and expertise have really left a lasting legacy in the Arctic. So that's always a good one. Ian Sterling. Now I wanted to show you this image because it really shows the clarity of the Arctic. And there's very little air pollution, and everything that grows is quite small. But you can see in the detail here that the poppies have pollinated and everything grows to its full maturity. It's just on a really small scale. So these are Arctic poppies going about their business in the Arctic. They're very, very small but mighty flowers. They have to put up with a lot of wind and a lot of cold. And everything is so vivid in the Arctic. This little sandpiper has quite a photogenic side, and the air is just clear here, and there's less pollution, and you'll never need a filter on your photos. So this is a great shot of a typical landing by Zodiac to stretch your legs and feast your eyes on the vast landscape. You can see the ship tiny in the background. You can see those two little Zodiac boats back there. So what's happening here is those Zodiac boats in the back, those are our scout boats, and they'll be searching for bears in the water and bears on shore, and we'll be making sure that it's safe. And then this Zodiac up front here, we're unloading our passengers, and they're going to get to go for a walk and learn about everything that's going on in the field of that location and not have to worry about the wildlife. They'll be able to, if there's a muskox there, they'll be able to keep their distance and view the muskox. If there's bears in the area, well, then we'll get back in the Zodiac and we'll keep our distance. But everything is really happening, and we're getting on shore as much as possible. So there's nothing in the world that really tugs at your heartstrings more than a sunset in the Arctic viewed from a ship. And this is one of my lasting memories of traveling up in the Arctic. It's something to do with being all alone in the vast wilderness, and it's the most clear and the most quiet you will ever experience. And the way these ships are designed is for your optimum experience. So there's so many outer decks to get out on and enjoy those sunsets. Hiking in the Arctic boasts all sorts of terrain, from dry peat moss to boggy ground and shallow wet puddles. We really embrace it all because it's our one chance at experiencing the North in its true and natural form. And another wonderful thing we do on our trips is we are partnered with the Oxen Network. And what the Oxen Network does is it connects local guides in local communities to us operators. So we work with them and we put cultural guides on our ships. We put cultural guides in the field, and there's somebody there to really ask questions to throughout the entire trip. And we'll do things like this particular trip into Arctic Bay last year. We had a cultural guide on board that her family was living in Arctic Bay. And when we stopped there, we had a bit of a reunion for them. We also had our musician on board go into the school, and he had some songs he wanted to sing for the kids, and the kids really loved it. And we just have this real family connection with the communities in the Arctic. And you'll see some community ambassadors here as well. They also will do presentations and lectures on the ship. Last year, we had a cultural guide that showed us how to make mittens and some beading and things like that. So it's really, really immersive when we're up there. And there's another great shot of us connecting with our cultural ambassadors. Now, we talked about that Arctic cotton and how the Inuit people use it to make a wick in their oil lanterns. So this is an image of an Inuit elder lighting that oil lantern. So it's like a half dish, and they put whale oil in it, and then they use the cotton grass to form out a line of cotton that they can light on fire. And it's quite pretty when it's burning, when all the cotton is burning. It's kind of dancing up and down. This lantern is called a kulik, and it's very traditional. And the elders will traditionally teach the younger women to how to light it properly and how to keep it going, and it's passed on for generations. They also will wear a parka that has a very, very large hood. It's called an amati, and the babies will ride in these hoods for probably until they're about 3 years old. So this particular baby, she was about 18 months, I believe. And you can see they're often just dressed in something light and plopped into the hood. It's a very warm, it's usually seal skin or caribou skin, and they love it in there. Sometimes they're all tucked in and tucked down and sleeping, and sometimes they're really trying to get out. I can imagine if they started jumping up and down in there, it would be a little bit challenging. Okay, so here we are at Prince Leopold Island. So this is located in Lancaster Sound, and it's right at the junction of Prince Regent Inlet and the Barrow Strait. Now, the island is significant as a summer habitat for breeding grounds for large populations of several Arctic bird species, and the cliffs rise 265 meters above sea level. So I've shown some other images there that are more aerial, so you can get an idea of this flat, tall pancake rock in the middle of the Arctic Ocean. And it's incredible. And the bird life around there, like, if you get pooped on, it's good luck, and likely somebody will, because there's a lot of birds flying about there and nesting on those cliffs. Now, it's also good to have a little bit of fun in the Arctic. So this is my friend Amy and I, and we're pretending to be seals on this little ground out iceberg on the beach. And there's that hut in the background that the bears were trying to get into. So we actually went back to this site a couple days later to see if the bears were still around, and they weren't there. So we were able to get on shore, and you can see the bay had filled up with ice. So the beluga whales had moved on. And this is the hike we did, that cliff that I was telling you guys about, where the polar bear researcher was camped up on top. So that's the cliff behind us. And then this is what the walking was like out in the back. And there's the ship just pushing through the ice. And there's our bears again as they're moving around. And then this other picture on the right is the Bellot Strait. Now, the Bellot Strait is about 18 kilometers long. It's a very narrow, and you have to wait to go through at high tide. And the significance of it really is that you can do a landing at the most northern point in mainland Canada. So after that, it's all Arctic archipelago. So we came in here to do this monumental landing, so we could say we stepped foot on the most northern point in mainland Canada. And that's all of us girls just enjoying that moment. This is Dundas Harbor, and this is an outpost that was established in 1924, and it was part of government presence intended to curb foreign whaling and other activities. And there's a lot of history to learn about Dundas Harbor on this trip, and only the ruins of a few buildings remain, along with one of the northernmost cemeteries in Canada. So there was a few people posted here that passed away, and there's a nice white picket fence cemetery, if you can believe it, up in the back. And then here we are, you can see our guide. Guides will carry firearms. So we have bear guards on our trips, and our passengers there that are sitting in front of us are just enjoying that vast landscape and beautiful scenery. I love this photo because I had to nab it from a fellow colleague. The truth is, I've never seen a walrus in the Arctic. I've traveled all over the Arctic and never seen a walrus, and people are always shocked when I tell them this. I have, however, seen beluga, narwhal, which are very rare, and that's just how it goes on expeditions. The Arctic really gives you what it wants, and you just have to feel blessed with what it offers you. And sometimes the fog rolls in and you have to adjust to a new day in the Arctic, and that's what's so intense and beautiful about it. It's raw, it's untamed, and it shows you the wild side every day. Oops. Oh, there we go. Destination overview. So we don't just travel into the Arctic and the Northwest Passage. We go to lots of different areas. We go to Tasmania. We go to the Norwegian Arctic and Greenland and Costa Rica and the Panama Canal. So lots of polar trips, lots of non-polar trips. We've got expedition, we've got soft adventure. So lots of different options for you. And we also have included a lot of the extras. So not really nickel and dime, house drinks with dinner, so beer and wine and soft drinks included, pre-voyage accommodation. If there's a sightseeing tour prior to the trip, we include that. And of course, you get that parka and muck boots and complimentary Wi-Fi. So we try and make these trips all inclusive, and we take care of it right from the beginning to the end. And that is really all about Northwest Passage.
Oh, thank you so much, Dana. That was just fantastic. I tell you, just my heart just goes there. I love expedition cruising. To me, I think I heard an expedition leader explain it best once. He said, this is the itinerary you signed up for, and
Yeah.
Mother Nature is really going, and safety, our captain, they will really control what happens. And for me, I love when I hear the ice is in the bay, we're going to plan B, or
Yeah.
something's going on, because it's like, oh, there's never going to be a bad option, and
Exactly.
it is just incredible to just go with the flow and see what there is to see. And as you said, it truly is a blessing to be able to explore these regions that so few people in our world will ever get to see. So I am so excited to share this with my clients and look forward to sailing with you, hopefully in
Yes.
next year in 2025. The Northwest Passage is one of my bucket list items for sure. And I really hope we can have some people enjoy that with you. And that smooth cross bow, I can't wait to experience that as well, because in rough seas, when you're in the polar regions, there can be, and to just be sliding through that, I really look forward to that experience for sure.
Yeah, it's quite different. I get incredibly seasick, so I figure if anybody can notice the difference, it'll be me. And I definitely did. I'd be at dinner and I'd see a little tilt in my wine glass a little bit, and I'd think, oh, it must be rough outside. And I would look out, and sure enough, it was pretty rough outside, but I wasn't noticing it at all. So I just kept going.
Oh, that is fantastic. And I wanted to ask you, the crews, like the expedition leaders, are they international? Are they mostly Australian?
Yeah, they're international. So we've got lots of Australians, Canadians, Americans, Europeans, and there's like really good variety of expedition team. Of course, all experts in their field,
Oh, yeah.
geologists and glaciologists and ornithologists, everything just,
Yes, yes. And it's so much fun. I mean, I'll never forget, like they just share their passion. This is their
yeah,
life's work. And, you think, oh, how thrilling can it be to talk about ice? But by the time you're done, it's like, oh my goodness, you are just
yeah.
pulled right into their love of the topic. Yeah, it really is amazing that they share that with us. Oh, that is good. I can't think of any more questions I have, but this has just been
That's great.
fantastic. I so appreciate your time and sharing this with us, and I really look forward to bringing clients and traveling on Aurora Expeditions. Thank you very much, Dana.
Awesome. Thanks, Diane. Have a great night.